Hi, everybody. I'm DJ Foster. Welcome to the Matt Mitchell Shows. I'm joined by Grand Valley State head football coach Matt Mitchell. Mitch, we got a lot to talk about this week on the show. An 83-46 victory on Saturday night over Notre Dame College, the highest scoring game in school history, the second most points Grand Valley State has ever scored in a football game with 83 points. You scored on 11 of your 12 offensive possessions, scored 12 touchdowns overall. What stood out for you the most offensively? Was there any one thing that stood out above the others?
I think all the stuff we did before the ball was snapped. I was incredibly impressed with our tempo of our offense. I mean, we switched a lot of personnel groups. I mean, if you were at the game, we played a lot of different people, and getting those people in and out of the ball game, a lot of different formations, a lot of things to manage before the ball is even snapped. I thought our offensive players and our offensive coaches handled that extremely well, including our quarterback. I mean, he changed some things in the line of scrimmage, got us in some good plays, good looks. So the management of the game before the ball was snapped was probably the best thing we did. And that's coaches and players working together to get that done. And so, that's probably one thing I look back on that we were happy about from the game, from that side of the ball.
Charles Johnson had 12 catches, 138 yards, two touchdowns, All that came from Heath Parling. Those guys are really developing a great connection. Talk about just how lethal they are.
Charles is a top-end talent wide receiver, but it's not talent enough that, makes those type of plays. There's a lot of work and time that's gone into that. I mean, there's been practice opportunities through last year's production they had together, spring ball. I think probably this summer, just spending a ton of time together to keep developing that chemistry. So, that could be lethal for us. I mean, Charles is a weapon, and actually, on that micro tape play where he scored the touchdown right down the middle of the field, they were really rolling the coverage over to Charles. And so Charles, having that game and some of the things that he does back in the boundary allows us to run the ball and opens up the passing game to other parts of the field. So, his production was great, but I also think a lot of this other production we have on offense was because of the result of kind of the threat that he poses over there into the boundary.
Following that, you let me right in my next question about the running backs. Chris Robinson scored a touchdown in all four quarters. Mike Rattay had 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns, 146 total yards. It seemed like everything you did running back-wise, you mentioned Kirk Spencer in the press conference, anything those guys did was working. Talk about how successful they were this past weekend.
When it comes to those three guys, we have a really good combination. Chris is he's a physical downhill runner. It's tough to get a direct shot on him. He's a 225-pound back that's very agile. And then you change it up with Kirk Spencer, who can put his foot in the ground and make some cuts and is very dynamic and is fast. And then, Mike Rattay is just very underrated. There's a lot of times, I think for defenders, he's hard to bring down because he has low center of gravity. Mm-hmm. I think he's faster than most people sometimes give him credit for. And then he has great hands, and we use him out of the backfield a lot in that game. I mean, Heath kind of uses him as his check down, and then they obviously have that vertical down the middle of the field. So good thing going. None of that would have happened, though, without our offensive line. Right. And, we've talked about that. We got some experience at our offensive line. Tight ends, been pretty happy with what those guys do. We use Joe Worth in the backfield to block some. Camps has been on the line of scrimmage doing some things, and then Jamie Potts has been a factor in some of the passing game things too. So we have a lot of variety of skill sets on the offensive side of the ball, and I think our coaches are using those guys effectively and making it very difficult to defend us because we have a lot of different pieces to the puzzle.
Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. You've been around football a long time. And I think you said after in the press conference that it's one of the strangest things to see how well the offense played, how poorly the defense played. It's probably strange to look at a score, you give up 46 points and you still win by almost 40. We won't spend too much time on it, but what do you think? What was the biggest red flag that came out of Saturday night defensively?
Confusion, pre-snap and post-snap confusion. And, that's probably the most concerning thing is that as a coaching staff, we didn't have our players prepared enough, and as players, they didn't adjust to or weren't locked in enough for what was happening. And so some of those plays, you got one-on-one matchups. We don't win that. Sometimes you're going to have to deal with that a little bit when you're on our, but we're not lined up properly. We're not what we're doing. That falls on our coaching staff and our players not getting our guys properly prepared. So that was very disappointing to me, coming in and watching the tape that some of the confusion that we had, that falls directly on our shoulders. And we've got to work hard to get that corrected, and there's got to be a sense of urgency for that. So it was a very, bittersweet game for me, because you look at the 37-point margin of victory, 83 points, and as the head coach had, you're happy to get a victory and conference victory, but it was embarrassing on the defensive side of the ball. We just we're not very well prepared, not ready to go. Players are coaches, and so that was very tough to handle after you watched, coming off the field, very disappointed. Then obviously coming in and watching the tape on Sunday morning was difficult too.
Rededication of Lubber Stadium was Saturday night. First home game, the new field, everything. 15,000 fans, over 15,000, second most ever at Lubber Stadium. 8,000 plus students, the most we've ever had at a football game. Talk about the environment, how special it was.
The environment was awesome. I mean, everything. I start with the students, so we had students there down in the student section was filling up an hour before the game.
Sure.
And when I took the field, the student section was packed. Everyone was in black, embracing the blackout, and then our berm down there in that end was packed, and now the sides of the hills were starting to fill up. So I really appreciate our student support and those guys coming out, and then part of it maybe was because of the flow of the game, but they stuck through to the end, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And in years past, we hadn't necessarily had that, so I appreciate that. And then, all the chairback seats, the season ticket holders, and just a lot of things went on. I think moving the band down there, I could feel that, even down on the field and everything that happened. So the whole thing was great. From our administration, the design of it, to the game day operations, to the coverage that we had. I mean, our program appreciates that. I appreciate that. I know our players appreciate that because a lot of times you don't see that in Division II. So it was very unique, and it was fun to be a part of.
Looking forward to a Tiffin team this week that's 1-1 on the year. They beat McKendree, an NAIA school, in their first week. Lost at Michigan Tech last week, 51-15. You defeated them 70-7 last year. Of course, that doesn't matter what, looking towards this year and this week. But what do they do that may concern you a little bit that you'll have to look out for?
I think our offense does a good job of using the full width of the field, 53 1/3, and then stretching it vertically. They make it very difficult to defend because they put players out in space, to the field, to the boundary, short throws, intermediate throws, long throws, screens. It's not just all a straight 5-step. There's some 5-step, some quick game. It's there's a lot to process on the offensive side of the ball. And so, again, we're going to have to do a great job of getting our players prepared to handle that variety of what's going on. Last week against Michigan Tech, Michigan Tech was able to get a lead, and it kind of threw them out of their game a little bit, so they were a little bit more off balance and had to go a little bit throw the ball some more than maybe they wanted to. So that's probably going to be a biggest challenge for our defense is just it's going to be a completely different offense in Western Oregon. There's going to be a different offense than we saw against Notre Dame College. And this is the thing that we've got to embrace is that we see one type of offense at camp where we see a lot of diverse types of offenses, and that's not going to change our whole schedule. We got to be able to adjust to different types of offenses from week to week, and we struggle with that against Notre Dame College. We're going to get a different style that we got to adjust to defensively.
Okay, let's not look past this week, but the 3 games after the Tiffin game this week, Ohio Dominican was 7-4 last year. At Michigan Tech, always tough to go up there and win, and then Ferris State at home. So what do you hope to accomplish this weekend that not only could carry over during the game on Saturday, but get you some momentum going into that tough stretch?
Well, it's always, about us. So I'm concerned about our football team. I'm concerned that our offense can keep up what they've been doing. I think there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and they should be a confident group, obviously, put up 83 points.
Right.
But we don't want to border on being arrogant and think that we've got things figured out. So humility on the offensive side of the ball coupled with execution and doing the things that we need to do on that side of the ball and in special teams, to be honest, because our special teams were pretty dominant Saturday night also. So defensively, we should be a hungry group, and we've got to improve. We've got to see some improvement right now. I mean, Tuesday's practice, we got to improve, and we got to see some improvement heading into this Tiffin game. And so we got to get a little bit of a road warrior mentality going on here. We got to go to Tiffin, which is down in Ohio, and then we got 2 trips coming up to the Upper Peninsula. So we've got to embrace this road travel in Oregon, long road trip to Ohio, 2 to the Upper Peninsula. We're in that stretch of our road games, and we've got to become a really hungry road team. That's what our focus got to be for Saturday.
Grand Valley State heads to Tiffin, Ohio this Saturday at 1:30 p.m. for a battle with the Dragons. Mitch, best of luck this week. Thanks for your time today.
All right, thank you.
And thanks for watching the Matt Mitchell Show here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.